diving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Raw Recovery, a Trudging Together podcast. My name is Gary Vittorelli. I will be your host today. And in studio with me is Carla C. She has a lot of experience, a lot of strength and hope. And I'm going to turn it over to Carla. Carla, for being here. Thank you for being here, I should say. And it's all your show.
Well, thanks, Gary. So what do you want to know?
Let's start with the history. Start with, way back when you were little and going forward, because you have some good stories from back then.
Yeah. So I think of it along the lines of sharing my experience, my strength, and my hope. My experience is what happened in the past, what got me here. Right. My strength is what happened when I got here, and my hope is what I'm learning today. So that's kind of how I structure it. But my experience was as a child in a very compulsive eating household. I was basically raised, to think of food as care and food as love. Mm-hmm. I remember, as a child, my lucky day was when my mom decided I could have 2 cheeseburgers at McDonald's, and I don't know who on earth needs that, but she was doing it out of love. She struggled with weight herself, and as a child, I knew her as a very heavy woman. And that gave me this picture that heavy women are the soft, loving people. And her sister, who was not heavy, she was more bony. She wasn't as good as my mom, so the less loving people were the thin people. So I grew up with that attitude that there was so much attached to, weight being the loving people, and the food, with a lot of carbs, and the sweets, that was all loving food. You had love at your birthday. There were all kinds of treats. There were treats around Christmas, and my mom's eyes would light up, at some well-made food. We were cooks. She became like the master chef of the family, and would do the big holiday dinners as long as she could, as she aged. And she's around today. She's 87 years old. She's been diabetic since she was 54. And she's insulin dependent, and still, she eats and takes insulin to keep on top of her diabetes. So she kind of, she still struggles, and it's interesting. So I remember at, I was a normal looking child until I hit 8, 9 years old. And I was completely devastated when I saw the family picture when I was 9 and in 4th grade. And I was a heavy child at that point. Because my parents had always told me how beautiful and perfect I was and all that. And to see that and realize that they were wrong, that they were lying to me, I was devastated at 9. At 9, it threw me into a childhood depression that, I felt separated from the other kids at school. I actually was targeted for teasing because of my weight, and that went on for years. So my high school was spent a lot hiding in the library, and worried about attention from guys and that sort of thing. I do remember at 9 thinking about the different knives in the kitchen, in the kitchen drawers that I could use to kill myself. And that is not, I don't think that's the normal childhood experience. So I would say that I really did lose some of the joy in childhood due to my weight. And at that point, as an adult looking back, I was a child. I didn't know. And my mother, who grew up the way she grew up, for her also food was love. So she was trying to be a loving mother, and she was doing the best she could. So that was something that I had to come to terms with as an adult. So, but I had this thing where food was a treat. So I was heavy in high school. I was heavy in college. I remember I had a lot of walking to do in college because I went to kind of a big college that covered a lot of acres on hills. So at that point, I was probably under 200 pounds, but still heavy. And then once I got into my career, I went straight from school into my career and had all that excess money because I was living at home, working in a different county in Southern California where the traffic is terrible at night. I had a binging buddy, and we would go out and to the finest restaurants in Orange County here. They have some good ones, I can tell you. But we would eat out instead of me facing the traffic home every night. And at that point, my heaviest was 220 pounds. And just, I remember, it's not like I had boyfriends. It's not like I went out. It's not like I dated. I was scared to death of dating. And, we were labeled like, the ugly fat girls. And so that was pretty much my experience in my early 20s. I started, when I moved away from my parents' house, I started to think about losing weight and looking better. And so I did have like moderate success, losing a little bit of weight. And, one of the guys at work noticed me, and, we started going out. And that I had my first boyfriend at 26 years old, first ever. And that ended in just absolute disaster. He left me and remarried his ex-wife 4 weeks after we broke up. And I worked with him, so I got to see him every single day. I got to hear the arguments over the phone. It was terrible. Deep depression at that point. I went into a deep depression. I knew that I was either going to kill myself or, my heart was going to stop. I needed to take care of myself. I got serious about losing weight, about counseling. I learned a whole lot about codependency at that point with the counseling. And I did lose some serious weight at that point. I got under 200 pounds.
Awesome.
And it was out of this, devastating kind of circumstance where I knew it was go time. Either I was going to take care of myself or I was going to pass. I was going to die. So, so I did. I took some actions, and my mother, in an offhand way, when I was a teenager, had just mentioned OA, as being a similar to AA, for eating, and I did as much as I could on my own. When I started seeing some of the weight come back, I got myself into OA. So I was probably 29-ish around that time. And the part of OA that I ended up in Orange County, OA was everywhere, every street corner, any hour of the day you could go to a meeting. And I got hooked in with the HOW people, the HOW, honesty, openness, willingness. And that's kind of the Nazi portion of the program where you have to be abstinent 30 days to share. You're on a special food plan provided to you for 30 days, where you can't have any carbs at all for the first 30 days, and then oatmeal. You could have oatmeal after the first 30 days. Oh my gosh, it was like a treat. I just had some oatmeal this morning. I haven't had it in a year. But yeah, so I did the HOW program and got a lot of great results with that. I was down to my lowest at that point was 148 pounds. The person I saw in the mirror looked heavy, but the pictures that people would take, I would look at them and go, "Hey, I look good."
Yeah.
So I've always had this body dysmorphia where it doesn't matter what weight I am. So even whatever weight I get to, I see myself as a certain type of weight, and that seems to be around 220 pounds, and that's how I see myself. So if I'm less than that, I don't see it in the mirror. If I'm more than that, I don't
Oh
see
my
it in the
God.
mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 148 looked really good. And so I was a hot single chick, and I was in with a great group of people at church, and just living the life, having a great time. In those days at OA, I had a sponsor that was a house sponsor, very strict. In program, I met this guy. There was this guy, and we talked, we got along together, we talked, we went to movies together, good buddy. And then, started getting interested. So I ended up dating this guy, and my sponsor dropped me because how dare you date someone in your first year of recovery? For her, I was in my first year. I was in my first year with her. I had been in recovery longer than that.
Right.
And what did she know? What did she
No.
Yeah, that sourpuss, It's
And I
because
happen to know the guy you're
you
talking
haven't had a date for a year, Leave me alone. But not having dated a lot, not having any success at all with guys, and to have someone there, it was like crack cocaine for me. So, um, and he was a really good guy, a really talented guy, and so here we are 29 years later, still married, but he's so we did the program together. We were happy in the program together. We were happy eating our HOW food. And I don't know what happened at that point, if that idea of I have this thing, so I really don't need program anymore as much. We can do our own program. I can sponsor myself. I don't know what kind of crazy took over at that point. But we, after knowing each other a year, we got married. So there was the wedding to plan, the life together to plan, and then the kids started coming, and program just drifted away. It went from the major guide in my life to the back seat to gone. So I had always, always, always been, even in my 20s, I would consider myself a human doing rather than a human being. And I was on the go all the time, do. I always felt like, I was not quite as good as other people. So I had to outperform just to be acceptable. So I would constantly, every night was really busy. Every night I had things going on, and I can still do that today. And I recognize it as a sign of crazy. So at least I recognize it now. I never did before. But I would get myself just completely overwhelmed, and having kids and having a pretty, I would have to say that, life got really, really hard. There were really complex things going on. We had an angry ex-wife to deal with. When my son was born, he was very, very sick. And it was just like kind of one thing, loss of jobs, loss of houses, loss of this, loss of that. There was a lot of crises constantly going on. And in that, the stress, I would eat to feel better. I would eat because I didn't deserve, I'm a good kid. I did not deserve to have the food taken away. And the thought of denying myself the food that I wanted, it sounded like a hateful thing to me. And I ate and I ate and I ate. I think my low at that point was when my low weight was when my son was born, and he ended up, in hospitalized for the first month before coming home on oxygen. I was probably, I don't know, 190 then. And then once they're home, my daughter we started doing the school thing. I started, trying to find jobs, working multiple jobs, and moving back from upper California to lower California, setting up new houses, living with my parents. It was on and on and on and on and on. I just got lost again and overwhelmed and eating and eating and eating. At that point, I was up to 330 pounds at my highest weight. My blood sugars were they had been running kind of on alert, because I was pre-diabetic for decades. Decades I spent at 120. And then I started spending time at 140. When I got a blood sugar, a fasting blood sugar of 285, I went, this is going to kill me. And I've got kids. I can't leave my kids behind. I've got, both of my kids are kind of special needs. And I have a stepchild too, that's also, all kinds of anxiety and crazy stuff going on. So,
and your husband's special needs too.
Huh?
Your husband's special needs too.
And my special needs husband. He actually really is. He really is. He requires special care. And you know what? We all require special care.
Yes, you.
Every one of us has special needs. I'm convinced of that. Me too.
Yes.
So, yeah. So when I saw that number, that 285, I knew it was a, remember in the big book, Bill, just after being hospitalized and swearing off, he finally said, that's it, no more, that's it, no more, and then the very next paragraph, he came home drunk again. And I so relate to that. So at that 285 number on my blood sugar, that was really no, we got to take care of this. Got to take care of this thing. And I knew it was beyond something I could control. Did I think away? Back in my mind, I did. But I decided to do that. I had always disregarded bariatric surgery because it was too risky. At that point, I thought, what I'm doing is too risky. What I'm doing is extremely risky and is definitely going to take my life. And I'm not going to be here. So I knew that bariatric surgery stood a chance of reversing the diabetes, which, my mother's a diabetic. My sister was an insulin-dependent diabetic until she had bariatric surgery. And now she's only somewhat insulin dependent. It didn't cure it for her. For me, it cured it. And before I left the hospital, my blood sugars were down to 100. And, I was on kind of a good path. And I thought, great. And through the process of the bariatric surgery, I lost 70 pounds. It got me down to 213 at my lowest after bariatric surgery. And the really cool thing about it was I could eat all the simple carbs I wanted because they were easy. What was hard was the vegetables and the protein. Those were hard.
I'm struggling with that
stuck in the back of my throat, and I had trouble with them going down. So, but the carbs, I could eat unlimited amounts of crackers, unlimited amounts of hard candy, and it was like, oh, cool. And I wasn't gaining weight at first, not at first, until I was. And then the weight started coming back on, and I went from 213 to 223 to 230. And I thought, oh no, I'm headed back. I'm headed back. And even worse, I was watching the blood sugars go back into the pre-diabetic range again. And when it hit, so I don't know what it was, about 44, but I hit 244 and a fasting blood sugar of 144.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah. At the back of my mind, all through the bariatric surgery and everything, I knew I couldn't do it alone. I knew I needed to go back to the support of OA. So if anything, that I had learned 25 years earlier in OA, it was that it worked. It was something that worked. And I didn't try a whole lot of things because I had no hope. I didn't have any confidence at all that I could stick to anything, because anything that I would try, I would stick to for a morning, and that would be about it. And that was kind of my experience when I first got to OA, was I could stick with it for a morning and then not after that. So I did look up an OA meeting, but being typical me, overscheduled, overbooked, overwhelmed, I didn't go. It was something I would need to do for myself, so I didn't go. It was not as big a priority as the kids and the husband and the house and the dogs, everything else, and my parents. Everything else came before me. So I went on like that for the better part of the year. This is 2019. Towards the not 2019, this was 2018. I binged through the holidays of 2018. It started when the Halloween candy hit the shelves in September, and binged and binged and binged on that through Thanksgiving, Christmas. At that point, we had some members of my family, half my family had gone off the deep end into alcoholism. And when you have a son that's drinking daily to die, drinking daily to black out, your child, it was, I just didn't know what to do. I knew I had failed them. I knew I had failed my kids. I knew I couldn't control things. I was like dumping out their alcohol. I was, doing all those things that Al-Anon tell you not to do. Not treating them with dignity at all, making decisions for them. But when my husband actually had a fall and ended up going into detox, I was free on a Friday to go to an OA meeting. And that was the first OA meeting. And I heard the most amazing things from chapter 3 of the big book, how, it's cunning, baffling, and powerful, and without help, it's too much for me. And I heard the acceptance reading for real the first time, that, if I'm disturbed, it's because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. I heard that. I really heard it. And I knew that I had hope there. So that first meeting, it was on a Friday. It was January 4th of 2019. I knew that I belonged there. I found my people there. It was a small meeting. It was a great little meeting. They did meditation. They did for today. They did sharing. It was just the perfect meeting for me. And I started doing my one meeting a week. It took me a few weeks, and I was crying in the meeting, saying I couldn't put the food down. I didn't know how to, set it aside and not go back into it again. And I had a woman in there turn to me and say, are you good right now? Are you abstinent right now? And like, it's noon. Yes. Pretty good right now, because mornings I'm pretty good. It's evenings. And she's like, well, so what's your plan for lunch? I'm like, I don't know. And we planned a lunch. Okay, now how about dinner? Well, I made a plan for dinner. She's like, that's all you have to do. You have to get through lunch and dinner and then get to the bed, get your head to the pillow without eating, and you'll have a day. And that was January 25th, and that was my first abstinent day. And that's my day. So I haven't, I had a couple slips and trips on the way. That first 2 weeks of, the M&Ms were in the mouth, and I went, don't. So then I'd be reaching for the M&Ms, and I'd get them in my mouth, and I'd spit them out. I'd go, do it, and spit them out.
Yeah.
That was good. And then I remember reaching for the M&Ms, and I felt like someone was coming up behind me going, no, sweetie, those aren't for you, And it was like, a toddler reaching for the knives, that the mom comes up behind, no, sweetie, not for you. And I developed this sense that is not my food. And when I've had things with too much sugar, it has made me sick these days. So pretty early on, I would get very nauseated and shaky, and it felt bad. So sugar feels bad to me. So now, if I taste something and I taste high sugar in it, it's of no interest to me whatsoever. Now I can look at that pile of birthday cake or the big ice cream sundae that they're passing around at the table, and it's just not my food. Mm-hmm. It's just not my food. I have such a neutrality around that. I struggle with volumes of abstinent food. So I'm working with my sponsor and my higher power. I do have to commit my food to a sponsor. So we're in the strength. This is what happens. So so it's important for me to commit my food to my sponsor. And it's better for me to commit it after the fact, because I still run a pretty crazy life. I still struggle with, doing too much. I'm working on it. At least now I see it as a defect.
Right.
So at least now I know I need to work on it. But I need to know that it's important to have a second pair of eyes looking at the food that I'm eating. I know that it's important for me to be in meetings. I know it's important for me to be working with others. I've been through the steps 3 times, and now I get to go through the steps multiple times because I have multiple sponsees, and everybody I have is working on the steps. So I think that's where the power of the program lies. That's one of the places the power of the program lies, is in working those steps, doing that release of your life to the care of God as you understand Him, the inventory cleaning house, and then keeping it clean, setting right the universe, after you've done wrong in it, the freedom that comes from that, as things come up, that, that 10-step stuff, I've learned that is like, you do something dirty, you look at the defect, you admit it to God, yourself, and another human being, you set right the wrong that you've released into the world.
Exactly.
And then you get to go be of service. I always miss that part, so, dang it, when I'm angry with someone, I get to go be of service to someone else. It's like,
yeah,
I hate that. They do me dirty, I get angry. Oh, okay. All right, who can I be of service to? So I'd have to say my hope these days is having I feel uncomfortable when I don't have a sponsor. So I am at my best when I have a sponsor. It's a crutch that I feel I need because I'm handicapped and crazy. So I have to have a food plan. There are foods I really need to not engage in. I started out no sugar, no white flour. So I talked it over with my sponsor. I didn't think white flour, there were cases where white flour is a problem, but it's usually in relation to sugar. So it seems to not be a problem. I can have one or two pieces of pizza and not feel the need to eat the whole pizza. I used to eat a whole pizza by myself.
Me
So,
too.
yeah, right. And it was pretty easy. So, these days, I'm satisfied with, one slice in a salad. I'm not that satisfied with one salad. I could eat salad all day. So, my food's beautiful now. I pick foods that are beautiful for my body and that are very loving. And I don't really have a desire to go back to those really damaging foods. Um, and once things get marked as damaging, like chips, I decided that this girl don't need no chips. So pretty much. The only time I'll eat chips is they are considered abstinent for me. And if I'm in a place where I can't get to the food that I really want to have, I'll settle for chips, but it's settling for chips. It's not, oh, good, I get to eat chips. It's more like salty, greasy crap, dang it, but I'm hungry. I'm really hungry. Because I do get pretty serious sugar lows if I don't eat regularly. So, yeah, it's been good. I've, in the program, I've given away, let's see, 45 pounds, 50 pounds. I'm giving away 50 pounds.
50 pounds sounds
Under
good.
200. I haven't been under 200 since, in decades. It's been decades since I've been under 200. So, and I'm running under 200 now. And man, it's so much easier to walk. I've been left with foot problems. My feet have collapsed in on themselves. So I'm in orthotic shoots and I get a lot of foot pain, but I was able to actually walk a mile with my dog yesterday on a hill.
Awesome.
So we have a neighborhood that's into the hills, and a mile there. It's
like 2 miles.
and it was pretty easily done. So I should do that more often. I'm thinking I haven't been on a bike since I've lost 50 pounds. I'm don't know what I'm waiting for with that. I have to dig it out of the heap that's in our garage right now. But anyway, I just, my sponsors or my sponsor and my sponsees save me all the time because I get to work the steps multiple times, working with them, telling my stories, telling them how step 6 worked out for me, step 7, how we get to carry some of our defects with us forever, and how, Bill has said, we haven't been told we have to be successful at this. We have to try. Our job is to try.
Right.
And then success, we got to leave that with our higher power. I've become incredibly closer to my higher power, who I call God, who is the God of my childhood, who I walked away from in junior high, and was just too smart to believe in a God. It was all about the science, and we're like the animals. We're born, we live, we die, and that's it. By the time I was 19, I had quit that and kind of came back into the fold here and really, really believed in God. I could not trust God. Well, in this program, I've learned that I can trust God, that the fears I was having, those were a problem with faith. So the opposite to fear is faith. And I had a sponsor that worked for months with me on that to put down the fear toy, because I would obsess over that. I would play movies in my head of the terrible things that were coming. I've been able to leave all that behind because I have faith in a power greater than myself, who has proved himself over and over and over. And step 11, where you're, improving your conscious contact with God.
Right.
And step 3, where you're turning your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand him. The decisions I make, the things that baffle me, I have a higher power that will come in. And if I pause and meditate and visualize where I should go, what I need to do, how this defect would look if I didn't have it, it's improving. It's just improving my life. So, to have a life free from fear, a life free from the self-loathing that I had, um, a life free from having to be superwoman to everybody around me just to be good enough. I don't have to do that anymore. It's bringing more balance in. I'm not there yet. That's what I'm working on. I'm working on balance. Why am I going from crisis to crisis to crisis? I continue to do that today. And so my sponsor and I are looking at that. I'm trying to keep my damn hand down when something needs to be done because I have family in the area and I'm getting in the way of them, getting to actualize themselves and getting to see what good they can do in the world because my hand's always up. So just sit back, take it easy, letting, not assuming that I am the best person in the room for the job. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not.
Exactly.
I'm willing to admit that, I may not be the smartest person in the universe and I can let other people, step in and do a reasonably good job. And maybe it won't be the same thing that I would do. Because my parents are a handful. They don't drive anymore. Mother-in-law doesn't drive anymore. I have an aunt that doesn't drive I mean, we've got these octogenarians, and my dad's turning 91 next week. Who would have
Wow,
thought that
that's
would
amazing.
happen? Yeah, and if you saw him, he should have been gone, 5 years ago. We almost lost him so many times. So, it's been a crazy ride. So, but I see my brother stepping up and my sister is taking people to appointments. It's great. So anyway, wouldn't trade the life I have for any slice of cake out there. It's just so not worth it. So that's all I got.
Cool.
What do you
That's
think?
awesome.
Thanks for letting me share.
Oh, anytime. I love your story. I always have. I have a couple questions for you.
Mhm.
One thing that I know that you've shared in meetings before is the concept of divorce
Mhm.
with divorcing foods, and that's something that going through my journey I've had to work on, and it's really not as bad as it sounds.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of consider it breaking up with a bad boyfriend, right?
Right.
Not good for you. In your case, a girlfriend, right?
Yeah,
Or you
exactly.
could break up with your boyfriend if you want.
Oh, nowadays it could be. You're right.
But yeah, it was a realization, when I had that, quantum leap in understanding that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and I am a precious child of my higher power. And he's looking on me with love, so I can look on me with love. When I tapped into that, it was really, really easy for me to set down, bags of salty snacks because I was still eating bags of salty snacks and it was still, if the box was opened, it would be gone. It was abstinent food for me. I wasn't breaking my abstinence, but it was definitely not something that this girl needed. And
Right.
so that's what it felt like. It felt like breaking up with a bad boyfriend. It was just like, I don't need you anymore. And it was easy. Putting that stuff away was easy. And now I can have a bag of salty snacks if I have to, if there's nothing else around. It's not what I prefer to have. And it's not like it calls my name, like I gotta have more, gotta have it. I gotta go to the store. I'm out, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Man, I used to get directives in my head. It's like, I feel like, this thing, and it would be the directive, and I didn't have any power at all to stop myself from hopping in the car and getting one.
Right. The
So
talking foods.
I don't
Yes.
have that anymore. So
Yes.
it is a divorce, and sometimes there's a mourning, and I laugh because that's true. My first abstinence included Donut Man donuts, which which I think is really funny, because they are special donuts, they're big donuts. They slice them in half and fill them with fresh fruit, so they're good for you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so fresh peach and fresh strawberry is their big claim to fame, and they've been on TV and they're really famous for it, and there's lines around the place now. There wasn't, I grew up here, and there was never that until it got on TV. But now you could drive by it at 11 o'clock at night and there's 30 people in line, waiting for a donut.
Wow.
But yeah, so I was going to have one strawberry and one peach donut. And the peach donuts were only 3 weeks. And so it was always this,
Gotta get it. Yeah.
coming out. So my first abstinence is I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving that up. And I came in January. There is no strawberry or peach in January. So they released them at the end of February. And by the end of February, it was like, oh, they're out. Okay. So I get to have one of those. Okay. Yeah, not today. and it ended up being like a lot of not todays. And I never ended up going and getting one. And by the time peach season came around, I had the knowledge that if I tried to have one, it would probably make me very sick. And then I realized that what I really loved about them was the fresh fruit. And I really didn't need the fresh fruit to be slathered with sugary slime and then stuffed into a greasy carb. That actually reduces the value of that beautiful fruit. So
that's a lot.
Big fan of strawberries, berries, peaches, and I sure don't need the greasy carb around it. So yeah. So I can drive by those people and laugh. And my husband always makes fun of me because I'm always like, look at those people. Oh my God. It's midnight and there's like 40 people in line. What? They're not that good. They're
not. They're really not.
Yeah. And you know what? I used to be a donut connoisseur, and the greasy carb part of their donuts really wasn't very good. If you were to just order a regular donut, they're not that good. Yeah. So I knew all the good donut shops, but even those they're not really even in my life anymore. I'll get the kids muffins there or bagels or something. But and my son worked at a 99 only store, and so he was bringing home candy. So part of the knife to the heart was I raised a couple of compulsive overeaters as well.
Right.
So he was like constantly bringing candy home and leaving it on the counter. So I think that actually worked in my favor because it gave me lots of practice of, oh, that's his crap, and if it was calling my name, I'd go drop it in his room and, it wouldn't call from there. So, yeah. Anything else?
No. The only thing I was going to let the viewers know, or listeners, knows that you and your husband were the first people I met in my very first OA meeting. It was a Saturday Night Live meeting.
I remember that. I remember you. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember you and your husband both telling me, you're in the right place. Keep coming back. We're going to love you too. You can love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept
coming back. Has it happened yet? Has it happened yet, Gary? Are you there yet?
Get there. I love myself more than I did back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you think of the miracle of chemistry and engineering and, our psyches, just the way we're built, we are pretty amazing. Our bodies are amazing. And, that higher power is really something else. Really something else.
But you and your husband have been a large part of my recovery.
Yeah. And you've been a part of mine. So,
yes.
Yeah. And I know Rob has really enjoyed your.
Yes. And I've enjoyed Rob as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound right, does it? But no, yeah.
Yeah. You know what you mean.
Yeah, I know I do.
We know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to ask is, what would you say to that new person like me that was on the fence of either going walking through the door of OA or now clicking on the link? What would put them that's on the fence saying, well, maybe I should do it, maybe I shouldn't do it. My life's not that bad.
Right.
What, do you have any
I don't know. I tend to, my thing is I don't tell people what to do. I'm learning to not tell people what to do, but I can release them. I truly believe every person has a higher power that is working with them on their recovery, whether they know it or not. So I am willing to release them to their higher power, and I'm happy to say, well, this is what worked for me. I was out of it for, I stayed away for 26 years. So if you think about it, I was 26 years in relapse on my own, and my best thought got me to 330 pounds. So I needed a different way of thinking. So all I can share is this is how it worked for me.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's you, maybe it's not. Maybe you're not a compulsive overeater. Maybe you're just a heavy eater that needs to, figure out a way. But when it comes down to it, nothing's to be lost by trying. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know for me personally, that's the best thing I've done for myself. That and the surgery.
Yeah. Right.
And putting myself first. That's a weird concept, but
it is a weird concept, right? So,
yes.
How dare you? What were you thinking?
Exactly. There's all these people that need your help. How can you think about yourself at a time like this?
Right.
Exactly. So anyway, that's everything I have. And was there anything else you'd like to add?
That's all I got. So.
Thank you, Carla.
All right. Yeehaw.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
hey, I hope it helps some people. So.
I think it will.
Well,
and I'll let Dion tell you what's going to happen next.
Okay.
You can announce the schedule from here.
Okay.
We're done. All right. And thank you, Carla, for a wonderful story of experience, strength, and hope. And thank everyone for listening. And remember that there are more great podcasts on our website, which is www.trudgingtogether.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.